Okay, well, the U.S. Supreme Court has come through. Yes, they have. Let me jump right into this here and listen to the Don.
Well, this was a big one, wasn't it? This was a big decision.
Yep.
An amazing decision, one that we're very happy about. This morning, the Supreme Court has delivered a monumental victory for the Constitution, the separation of powers, and the rule of law in striking down the excessive use of nationwide injunctions to interfere with the normal functioning of the executive branch. The Supreme Court has stopped the presidency itself. That's what they've done. And really, it's been an amazing period of time this last hour. There are people elated all over the country. I've seen such happiness and spirit. Sometimes you don't see that, but this case is very important. I was elected on a historic mandate, but in recent months we've seen a handful of radical left judges effectively try to overrule the rightful powers of the president to stop the American people from getting the policies that they voted for in record numbers. It was a grave threat to democracy, frankly, and instead of merely ruling on the immediate cases before them, these judges have attempted to dictate the law for the entire nation. In practice, this meant that if any one of the nearly 700 federal judges disagreed with the policy of a duly elected president of the United States, he or she could block that policy from going into effect or at least delay it for many years, tie it up in the court system. This was a colossal abuse of power which never occurred in American history prior to recent decades, and we've been hit with more nationwide injunctions than were issued in the entire 20th century.
Wow.
Together. Think of it, more than the entire 20th century.
This just goes to show you how much the Democrats are acting like spoiled little children. Everybody gets out on the street and decides what game we're going to play, and if it's not the game they want to play, they take their ball and they go home. Just this ridiculous juvenile behavior is just amazing. Okay, the election clearly went against the Democrats. Any way you want to argue it, Trump won all of the key states, all the borderline states, the Senate, the House. I mean, across the board, he won in every aspect at this last election, which not by, it's not like he had, 90% of the vote, but he had the majority, clear majority. He had a clear mandate. The American people wanted things to go this way. And frankly, since the election, seeing all the success that he's been having with bringing world peace, little things like that, I think his approval rating is even higher today. So the Democrats are just like spoiled little children in the way they're behaving with filing all these little motions trying to stop the things that all of us voted for, right? I mean, most of what they're fighting him on is the immigration issue, and that's the one big issue why most of us voted for Trump. So let's finish this.
I'm grateful to the Supreme Court for stepping in and solving this very, very big and complex problem, and they've made it very simple. I want to thank Justice Barrett, who wrote the opinion brilliantly, as well as Chief Justice Roberts, and Justices Alito, Gorsuch, Kavanaugh, and Thomas. Great people. Thanks for this decision, and thanks to this decision, we can now promptly file to proceed with numerous policies that have been wrongly enjoined on a nationwide basis. And some of the cases we're talking about would be ending birthright citizenship, which now comes to the fore. That was meant for the babies of slaves. It wasn't meant for people trying to scam the system and come into the country on a vacation. This was, in fact, it was the same date, the exact same date, the end of the Civil War. It was meant for the babies of slaves, and it's so clean and so obvious. But this lets us go there and finally win that case, because hundreds of thousands of people are pouring into our country under birthright citizenship, and it wasn't meant for that reason.
The birthright citizenship, the real abuse of that has been a lot of foreign nationals will come into our country for no other reason than to have a baby here. And then using that baby, since it's a citizen, as a way to weasel their way into our country without going through the usual processes. It does streamline things for them. And it just shouldn't be that way. It's not what it was intended for. And so they created this market, if you will, where people were just coming over just for that purpose. Not that they had any business dealings here, not that they already had family here, not that they were here visiting here. They came here specifically to abuse that law and weasel their way into the country.
Was meant for the babies of slaves. So thanks to this decision, we can now promptly file to proceed with these numerous policies and those that have been wrongly enjoined on a nationwide basis, including birthright citizenship, ending sanctuary city funding, suspending refugee resettlement, freezing unnecessary funding, stopping federal taxpayers from paying for transgender surgeries, and numerous other priorities of the American people. We have so many of them. I have a whole list. I'm not going to bore you, and I'm going to have Pam get up and say a few words, but there's really, she can talk as long as she wants because this is a very important decision. This is a decision that covers a tremendous amount of territory. But I want to just thank again the Supreme Court for this ruling. It's a giant. It's a giant. And they should be very proud, and our country should be very proud of the Supreme Court today. And with that, I'd like you to listen to the words of Pam Bondi. She's an incredible Attorney General.
Okay, well, before we go over onto that, it's a huge decision. It has the ability of containing all this nonsense. You know, you don't have a judge from Iowa who has no international experience, no experience in international law or trade or just any experience in that regard, you know? I mean, you get a judge that's been dealing with, cows and automobiles his whole life, and now all of a sudden you're going to look to him for international laws and international trade. They have no business being in there. And when you've got a president who's duly elected by the majority of our country, you can't have one guy who just takes it upon himself to decide we can't do that, and then files an injunction against the president, telling the president what he can and can't do. Our government was not designed that way. Here was another little loophole that's being exploited by these spoiled children that we call Democrats. And that's what I have to say about that today. So with that said, give us a thumbs up, like, subscribe, ring, ding, ding the bell so you get notifications. Thank you for listening, my friends.